Imagine trying to do business with your next door neighbor, right? But every single time you want to buy or sell something, you have to route your payment through a totally different continent first, pay a massive penalty, and then wait weeks for the paperwork to clear. Sounds completely absurd, doesn't it? Well, for decades, that has been the painful reality for countless businesses across Africa. But that's exactly what is changing today. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a geopolitical shift of truly massive proportions as we break down the African Continental Free Trade Area, or the AfCFTA. Now look, trade agreements can usually sound incredibly dry and full of confusing legal jargon, but my goal today is to give you a clear, jargon-free breakdown of exactly how this works on the ground. We're talking about an initiative designed to fundamentally rewire how business gets done across an entire continent. It is literally a global economic network powering on right before our eyes.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The biggest free trade zone. 2. The old way of trade. 3. What AfCFTA changes. 4. Rules of origin. 5. 6 steps to trade. And finally, 6. The future opportunity. Section 1. The biggest free trade zone. A continent united. 1.4 billion. That is the staggering number of people we're talking about here. When we look at the AfCFTA, we're looking at the largest free trade zone in the entire world by population. 54 African countries have signed this agreement, and 48 have already ratified it. I mean, just think about the gravity of what that actually means. Historically, we've had dozens of fragmented, siloed economies, right? All operating with totally different rules and different standards. But this agreement is designed to wipe those divisions away and create one single unified market of 1.4 billion people. You can kind of think of it like the creation of the European single market, but on a vastly larger geographic and population scale. It's an incredible ambition designed to totally transform how Africans do business with each other and drastically increase the continent's bargaining power on the global stage. But to truly appreciate the magnitude of what this agreement changes, we first need to take a hard look at the harsh reality of how trade has historically worked.
Section 2. The old way of trade. The wall of paperwork.
So today, when a small African trader wants to sell goods to a neighboring country, they don't just cross an invisible line on a map. No, they face a literal wall of stacked papers, physical documents, redundant forms, and really expensive permits. They face heavy red stamps that literally say denied just because one single signature was missing. They face devastatingly high import taxes, tariffs that can easily add 15, 20, or even 30% to the final cost of a product, making it basically impossible to compete. And imagine the physical toll. You have truck drivers waiting 3 weeks at a border crossing, watching agricultural produce completely spoil in the hot sun, all just waiting for customs clearance. Plus, the rules completely change every time you cross a new border. Because of these chaotic rules and massive physical and financial barriers, a really stark contrast emerges. Only 15% of Africa's trade is actually with other African countries. To put that into perspective, compare it to Europe, where a massive 60% of their trade is internal, or Asia, which sits strong at 40%. This heavy burden of taxes and red tape basically made Africa the least connected continent on the planet with itself. The trade routes between neighboring nations were sparse, frustrating, and incredibly expensive. And that is the exact problem the AfCFTA was engineered to solve.
Section 3. What AfCFTA actually changes. Dismantling the barriers. Step by step, product by product, and country by country, this agreement essentially takes a giant pair of scissors to that historical red tape. At its heart, the agreement rests on 3 massive pillars. First up, it aims to eliminate tariffs on 90% of goods traded between participating countries. So over a set implementation period, those crippling import taxes of 15 to 30%, poof, gone. They simply fade away, making goods dramatically cheaper for the consumer and vastly more profitable for the seller. Second, it standardizes the rules. Instead of navigating a completely different legal maze at every single border, traders now get one standardized set of customs procedures, one unified system for determining where a product comes from, and one centralized way to formally resolve disputes. And third, and this is absolutely huge, it builds the crucial digital infrastructure required to actually make this work seamlessly in the modern age. This includes the eTariff book, which is an intuitive online tool to easily look up rates. But arguably the most revolutionary piece of technology here is PAPS. That's the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Let me explain why this is such a game changer. Previously, if you wanted to buy something from the country next door, you often had to convert your local currency into US dollars or euros, route that money all the way through a bank in New York or London, pay hefty conversion fees, and then wait days for it to clear. PAPS changes all of that. It allows traders to do business directly in their own local currencies, instantly.
Section 4. Rules of Origin Explained. The Gatekeeper of Free Trade. Okay, I really want you to pay close attention to this next part because it is the most important and easily the most misunderstood part of the entire AfCFTA agreement. You see, not everything automatically gets a free pass. There is a gatekeeper. Rules of origin are the specific criteria used to determine if a product is quote-unquote African enough to actually qualify for that tariff-free trade we just talked about. Just because a crate is shipped from an African port doesn't automatically mean it gets to skip the tariffs. The product has to pass a rigorous test. It has to go through a metaphorical scanning machine at the border. To prevent foreign countries from just using Africa as a transit hub for cheap goods, a product must either be wholly obtained in Africa or it must be sufficiently transformed within Africa. Let's see how this plays out across 3 distinct scenarios to really make this concrete. Scenario 1, Ugandan coffee. The origin source is wholly obtained. It was grown, harvested, and produced right there in African soil by local farmers. The result? It passes effortlessly, 0% tariff. And the exact same rule applies beautifully for things like cocoa from Ghana or copper mined in Zambia. Now, scenario 2 is where the nuance kicks in. Kampala steel. Imagine a bustling steelmaker in Kampala. They employ hundreds of local workers, but they have to use raw materials, steel billets, that were imported from outside of Africa. So does it pass the test? Well, if that factory processes the steel, heavily refines it, and adds enough value, which is typically calculated at between 35 to 60% value added within Africa, then yes, it passes and it earns that 0% tariff. The system recognizes that local jobs were supported and real, tangible transformation happened. But then consider scenario 3, textiles. Imagine a trader takes a massive roll of finished fabric imported straight from outside of Africa, and literally all they do locally is cut it and sew a button on it. The result? Currently, it fails. The gate stays firmly closed. That is simply not considered sufficient transformation. For certain highly debated products like textiles, automobiles, and sugar, the specific rules of origin are actually still being fiercely negotiated right now. If your product falls into these specific categories, you simply can't trade it under the AfCFTA. So the golden rule you absolutely must take away from this is you have to know your product's specific rule before you put anything on a truck.
Section 5. 6 steps to trade, from Kampala to Accra.
So how do we put all of this massive macroeconomic theory into actual practice? Let's zoom in on a micro-level application and trace the practical real-world journey of a Ugandan coffee farmer who wants to sell their premium beans to a new buyer in Accra, Ghana. Here is the exact path they take through the new system. Step 1. Check your product. Our farmer simply goes online to the AfCFTA e-tariff book, types in the international product code for coffee, and confirms that it is indeed covered in Ghana's tariff schedule. Step 2. Verify rules of origin. As we just learned, coffee is an agricultural product wholly obtained in Uganda. The origin rule is beautifully straightforward, and the documentation required is incredibly simple. Step 3. Register with the National Trade Authority. In Uganda, the farmer registers with the Uganda Export Promotion Board, gets their official exporter number, and logs into the AfCFTA digital platform. Step 4. Apply for an AfCFTA Certificate of Origin. You can think of this critical document as your golden passport to tariff-free trade. The farmer submits their commercial invoice, and the electronic certificate is officially issued. Step 5. File the customs declaration. The farmer files the paperwork with the AfCFTA preference claim. And guys, here's where the relief really sets in. Instead of facing a frustrating wall of paperwork, unpredictable border delays, and a massive tax bill, the coffee leaves Uganda, hits the port, and sails to Ghana, completely bypassing the old tariff walls. It is smooth, predictable, and fast. And finally, step 6, payment. This is the absolute game changer. The transaction is handled via PAPS. The buyer in Ghana simply pays in their local currency, cedis. The farmer in Uganda instantly receives their local currency, shillings. No one had to frantically hunt for US dollars. No one suffered a 3% foreign exchange loss to some bank in a different hemisphere. The money stays entirely within the African financial ecosystem. That is 6 clean, highly efficient steps from a Ugandan farmer straight to a Ghanaian consumer.
Section 6. The future of African trade. The connected continent.
Let's zoom back out to the macro vision for a moment. Look, we need to be realistic here. The AfCFTA isn't totally flawless right out of the gate. It is still a very young agreement. Implementation in certain regions is slow, and the complex, continent-wide digital infrastructure, well, that's actively being built and refined right now. But the momentum and the direction are undeniably clear. The entire continent is slowly, steadily lighting up with new, dense, incredibly active trade routes. Kampala to Accra, Nairobi to Lagos, Cairo to Cape Town. More than 48 countries are deeply committed to making this system work, pushing past historical barriers to connect their economies. The businesses and entrepreneurs who take the time to learn this system right now, while it's still growing, the ones who really understand the rules of origin and the digital tools, they will absolutely be the ones who benefit the most over the next decade.
That brings us to the end of our explainer. The AfCFTA is actively rewiring the global economy, and the biggest opportunity for African trade in our lifetime is unfolding right now. So the only question left is, are you ready? If you want to be ready for this massive shift, you absolutely need to stay informed and stay ahead of the curve. This explainer is brought to you by Trade Insider Africa, where we break down African trade one crucial topic at a time. Please make sure to subscribe for more explainers just like this one. And hey, if you want personalized, actionable guidance on how your specific business can navigate and profit from the AfCFTA, be sure to click the link in the description to book a consultation with Trade Insider Africa today. Thanks.